think it's fair to say that Lily Allen is an icon within British music culture. Her late 2000s work had such a unique approach to the sassiness of her writing, her humorous style within her writing as well. There were so many hits that came from those first two albums that I think a lot of people, even today, would remember, would think fondly of. You can't really go wrong with songs like The Fear, to be honest with you. She had such a unique style within tackling different topics within her writing, and yeah, I think she had a bit of an influence on how people were starting to write their own songs within UK culture as well. And yeah, those first two albums, pretty damn good. You can't really go wrong with them at all. I think you should definitely check them out if you never have before. They're pretty fun, they're pretty light, they're upbeat, like I say, silly, funny, quirky type of humour coming through in the lyrics, which I find to be quite unique. But she didn't really have much staying power beyond that. Like, once we got to Jesus, yes, she called the album Jesus, that was kind of it. You didn't really see her in the charts popping up. She had an album like 7 years ago, which I reviewed on this channel, and barely anybody even spoke about it. I think I was one of the only people to even review it within YouTube music reviewer, community, the community that we have here. Nobody really mentioned it. It had some pretty good songs on it, like Family Man, but it's been interesting to see that there's been a slight reignition in interest in this album, because for 10 years now, possibly even longer, Lily Allen's just kind of been fading, really. And you probably can understand why there is such talk around this album, given the fact that there's so much drama surrounding it with the writing. Again, her wittiness in the lyrics, the sassiness is coming back a little bit stronger this time. And of course, it's become quite public drama with how she's very much targeting David Harbour, who they were once married. I think they might even have children together. Look, I'm not going to pretend that I can know anything about the ins and outs of her life or David Harbour's life. All I know David Harbour for is friggin' Stranger Things. So it has been quite surprising to see such an interest in this, because as two public figures, I couldn't really imagine in 2025 there being a huge amount of interest within what happened between them. But I guess if you're well known enough, people do like gossip, people do like the drama, people do like this kind of thing. So I guess it makes sense, but it does feel a little random that we have so much interest in this. I mean, do we really care that much about their own personal lives and what happened between them? This is no like Beyonce, Jay-Z. Like, that was mega huge stars that, publicly aired out their drama, possibly to sell records, if we're being honest. And I do like Lemonade, but it did feel very much, intentional. And I just find it quite surprising that we're seeing so much buzz around this album based on the two people that are involved. Digging further into the actual music of the album, I am even more surprised. I mean, if you're looking at the current data surrounding this album, each day it seems to be gaining more and more streams, more and more traction, more and more people I'm seeing talk about it. And I'm kind of shocked. I'm not really hearing anything that warrants any of that, if I'm being honest. This is a pretty bland sounding, uninspired sounding, lacking of any musical identity sounding album. I think the main target demographic is the people that just kind of want to see what she's saying about David Harbour and the types of things she's saying in regards to that. But are they sticking around for how good the songs sound? I mean, fair enough if they are, but I'm not. It's a shame because some of the writing on this album does kind of keep me entertained and interested, particularly the opening track. I think it sets up the album quite nicely, actually, where she's talking about how she's going to be like this West End girl and she's got this dream thing that's about to, reignite her life in a way that excites her. She's super thrilled by it. Then the song ends with this phone call, and all of a sudden, life comes crashing down on her, and reality comes crashing down on her. I feel like a lot of people can relate to that. Like, when you have really good news or something really good happens to you, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you can just have something not too long after that kind of like pulls you back to reality, and you're just left feeling how you were before, and that great thing that happened to you maybe a day ago or however long ago kind of feels like a bit of a distant memory, and you're just left with something to, willow about or whittle about or feeling sad about. And I think this track does that really well. Like, all of a sudden she has this phone call. It clearly is her talking to David Arbor. He's clearly saying something to her about the relationship, or something about something in that regard. And then she's just crying, and it's just really sad, and she's just like, okay, we'll speak when we get home. I really like that as an introduction to the album. I think it sets up the tone and what you're going to get for the rest of the album so nicely. It brings you into the story, it brings you into the world, it brings you into what's going to happen next. Oh, well, what was that phone call really about? Well, clearly you find out not too long after that their relationship isn't quite as strong and things are going south. But unfortunately, that interest evaporates with Ruminating, which again, lyrically, kind of like talking about thinking of things, and you can't, like, struggling to take it off your mind. You're dwelling on things, thinking about the things he said, thinking about things you said in the conversation. Again, very, tangible, relatable things that we can all feel when it comes to this kind of stuff. But the vocal effect that she's using, I'm kind of feeling like I'm overusing Charlie comparisons a lot on this channel recently, but I can't help but feel, was she trying to emulate the same kind of thing that Charlie does? Because vocally it feels like she's trying to do that. And it's a good example of how just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And Charlie, as an artist, has never just done it for the sake of it. She has a really purposeful way of incorporating, auto-tune or vocal effects, and it really works for what she does. Now that we're starting to see other artists just do it because they can and because it seems like it's cool, is really highlighting that you shouldn't, because this sounds really bad. Like, it sounds really demo-ish, it sounds really awkward. The filter, whatever is on her voice, doesn't do her justice whatsoever. I don't think the beat is particularly interesting as well, and it just sucks me out of the album almost immediately. I'm less interested in the story almost straight away compared to what I was feeling from the very first song. Tennis is an interesting track lyrically. You're probably going to hear me say this a lot in this review, where I'm kind of invested in what's being said, and I'm kind of interested, not on all the songs. Some of the writing is actually really poor, to be honest, which I'm not seeing many people say, but I'll get to those later. But some of the writing, I am interested in what she's saying, where she's saying on this track, oh, I think I'd have preferred it if you were going to cheat on me, to just do it with somebody with without any sort of emotion attached, but yet finding out that you have this common interest and finding out that you're doing fun activities with this person makes it far worse. And again, I think the lyrics and the writing and the idea going behind that is pretty interesting and pretty potent. But once again, I'm not really feeling the vocals. The delivery doesn't feel particularly sharp. It doesn't feel like she's pouring a lot of emotion into it. She kind of sounds a bit like flat and kind of like laid back in quite a weird way. It's almost like she's trying to give off this unbothered tone, but clearly, given the writing and given what the album's about, you should sound a lot more bothered. I'd rather it sound like you were like crying while writing this, if anything. That might be a bit over the top and melodramatic, but I'd prefer it than this just really like plodding along delivery that doesn't have many interesting musical elements surrounding it either. And then the chorus just falls really flat, and that whole "and who the hell's Madeline" line should hit and be funnier than it is, because Lily Allen is funny. I said that at the start of this video. Her early stuff is funny. She can be really, really funny. But yet that line, because there's not enough striking qualities to this song, that just doesn't really land for me. I just need way more oomph. Relapse again, just flat as hell beat. This beat is just nothing, and it again feels like it's trying to be contemporary, feels like it's trying to be like, putting its own spin on modern sounds that have been kind of like making their way into the charts a little bit. There were some tracks where the beats actually reminded me of like some Pink Pantheress. I don't know if that's an influence for her, but that kind of sound is existing on this album, but it's just done in the most white bread way you could imagine. Like, it's so nothing most of the time. It doesn't feel like I'm attached to the songs. The melodies aren't really there, and I'm just left feeling bored. And again, the vocal effect that lives on her voice on this track just needs to go away. It's so unflattering. It's not as unflattering as Ruminating, but it's getting close to that, and I'm just like not enjoying what I'm hearing. And that should be a big part of why you listen to an album. Obviously, that's a very obvious and stupid thing to say, but it's true. Beg for Me as well. That chorus just really doesn't land. There's just not enough oomph. There's not enough power. There's not enough, again, anything surrounding it musically that makes me latch onto anything. Everything just feels really, really dull. We then get to a string of tracks which have 3 of potentially the worst song titles of the year, particularly out of context. If you're just looking at the song titles, them 3 in a row, Pussy Palace, 4chan Stan, and how do you no monogamy is, I think, is how you'd say it. I can clearly see the play on words she's doing there, but it's such a mouthful and just looks awful written down. But this is where, again, like, her usual strengths should be really hitting hard here, but particularly 4chan Stan, I just find it's really forced. Like, the reference to 4chan feels like she thought, oh, I'm going to reference that, but didn't really build around it and just did it kind of for like the clickbaity title of the song. But the actual reference to 4chan and how like she's trying to label, it feels weird saying his name, but we know who it's about, but label David Arbor as this, like, I guess, sex addict who just spends all his time on 4chan. We don't know him personally. He might be doing that, he might have done that, or she might just be exaggerating it for the humor of it. But either way, I don't feel like the story being told here really sells the idea of him being a 4chan stan. Like, you could have really gone in on what makes him obsessed with 4chan. This could have been a hilarious song. Like, we know the absolute hellhole that 4chan is as a site that exists on the internet, and yet it just felt like she doesn't really know much about it, but she just referenced it just for that one liner. And I just thought the rest of the song could have really built around that, and it doesn't. Pussy Palace, I mean, it's not bad, I guess. It could be funnier again, though. Like, I think the chorus of her just saying Pussy Palace over and over again, the first time you hear it, you're a bit like, oh, okay, that's kind of silly. But then, like, by the time you finish the song and she's saying that loads, and then you listen to the album multiple times, as I often do, and I'm just really sick of that chorus. It's not catchy. It's really irritating. The way the words sound together just annoys me. And I think, again, it could have been really funny, but it just isn't really. And again, the lyrics are writing. It's interesting, you know, this idea that, she's upset or distraught that he's turned their place of peace into this pussy palace where he just basically brings as many girls over as however many he wants. That's a really interesting concept. It's like all the ideas on this album are there to make a great album, and yet so much of it, I think, just falls a bit flat, again because of the music, or again because the lyrics don't quite hit as hard as they should. Now, the Mummy, yeah, that thing, musically is probably the best song. Like, I don't know where this random influence comes through. It is completely out of place on this album. It makes no sense musically that it's here, but it actually is pretty catchy. It's got way more of a pulse. It's got way more of a beat to it. I'm just more invested in this. And this isn't to say as well, in case anybody thinks I just don't enjoy slowed down, slower music. I really do. Like, there's so much music out there that I love that goes for more of a somber tone. It's just, for me, on this album, it's not really being sold well. There needs to be more instrumentation to beef up these songs, more melodies to make some of the lines hit harder than they do. I just don't find it's doing that. Fruity Loop ends up being a pretty scathing closing track, particularly that first word where she's basically attacking his childhood and saying how he never really properly grew up and he's just such a mummy's boy. Again, we're just taking her word for it, maybe. She's exaggerating these elements and he isn't like that at all. But you're taking it for what it is as a diss track, because this is diss tracks. Most of these tracks are diss tracks, let's be honest. Like, when you're writing about an unknown relationship that nobody knows the other person, you wouldn't necessarily call it a diss track, but because David Harbour is such a well-known public figure, you've got to call these diss tracks, and this track is pretty harsh. And the Fruit Loop reference, which I had to look up because there's a picture of him on the internet eating Fruit Loops. Apparently he said somewhere before that it's like his favourite cereal or something. That's clever that she used that kind of against him for the purpose of this song. But yeah, it's pretty harsh. It's probably the harshest written song. I mean, she clearly wanted to leave this heavy punch until the last moments of the album to make it really stick and make it really remind you of how much he's hurt her and how much he's really, damaged her, and what he did to their relationship by cheating on her so often, based on what she said, obviously. So yeah, it's a pretty heavy final track. She does not hold back. So yeah, I would say that's probably one of my favorite tracks just for that reason. And the yeah, that one is musically my most, favorite song on the album. But for an album that digs deep into such a heavy topic with some really well written lyrics throughout and interesting ideas, it doesn't stick the landing the whole way. It really feels like it needed more bite to it, and yeah, I'm just not fully feeling it. And honestly, at times, despite the fact that you're meant to be rooting for Lily Allen and you're meant to be on her side because she's the one that's been done badly, and she's the one that's hurt, and she's the one that you're listening to, and she's telling the story, I don't know if every track makes her come across that well, honestly. There are times where it feels like the way she's presenting lyrics or the way she's writing songs, particularly like a track like 4chan Stan, it feels like I'm not really on her side. I feel like I need to be more on her side than I am, particularly when you listen to a breakup album, when you listen to breakup songs. Fiona Apple does it brilliantly, where you're just hanging on every word she says. And there is humor in her lyrics too, which keeps you entertained as well. And yet, that's more of an investment to me than some of the tracks here, where I'm actually just a bit at times thinking, you're not coming across as likable as you should be, and you're not really coming across that great either. Not to say that she's done any wrong, but like I say, we don't know anything about these people, so you have to take the album for what it is. And yeah, I'm not really fully invested in her on this album as I probably should be, when that's the entire point of it. Maybe again, if the music was just more engaging, I probably would find more to enjoy, and I wouldn't be saying that. But because I'm left feeling quite bored on a lot of these songs, I am sort of maybe overthinking some elements that I shouldn't be, and maybe I'm thinking, oh, this music could have been way more interesting. But honestly, the vast majority of this album is just, that picture of boiled rice and unseasoned chicken. It's so uninteresting as a musical piece. The writing, yeah, I'm interested, but not the whole way through, unfortunately. And yeah, I'm kind of left feeling quite flat. And this is coming from somebody that has defended her music before and said good things about her. So for me, I'm thinking 5 out of 10. Really, really underwhelming. Again, if you're more somebody that's invested in the storytelling and you're not really as eager to critique the music elements like I am, you might get a lot out of this. But for me personally, I just needed more. I needed way more to keep me engaged. Yeah, that's how I feel though. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you agree, disagree? Subscribe if you haven't already. Stick around for more reviews and videos on this channel. Let me know what I should review next as well. Have a good day and goodbye.